revolutionary greeting to one and all. I welcome you all on the behalf of Student Union for the talk on Kashmir Updates. We have with us the very known professor Hameedah Nayeem. She is a professor in Department of English in University of Kashmir. She has been teaching novel and drama. She was awarded PhD degree in 1993. And she has also written a very known book, The Crimes of Life, the early fiction of Margaret Draper and demystifying ideology, identity, gender and politics in Kashmir. She is founder member of Women Making Peace, a Howard University initiative. For this session, I would like to invite Professor Hameedah Nayeem to come on dais, and I would like to invite Comrade Umar Jalis to come and start the talk.
Convey my warmest regards and love from Delhi and Kashmir to all of you, and Assalamu alaikum, all of you. But first of all, I would also like a particular order in the audience. I would request all of you to come on the front seats so that we can have more unified audience and have a better rapport with you, so that we can have a kind of conversation with you. We can have this portion, totally filled so that... Come this way, all of you come this way. Come this way here. So that there are no gaps. That disturbs me. I would like one side to be filled totally. Come on. It does disturb, but even anyway, my volume is very expansive, and you can still get me even if I don't talk through the mic, because keeping the mic all the time in hand does disturb in your communication at times. So first of all, let me thank heartily Students Association who have invited me, and it was a very short notice, but I thought if students are very eager to listen to what's happening in Kashmir, and I should actually leave everything aside and accept their invitation and come and talk to you, share what's happening in Kashmir, so that your conscience will also be roused and you can see beyond the official version of realities. The kind of information you get about Kashmir that is very biased, that is basically colored by the media, and the media has become an extended arm, complicit with the state, in the sense, normally media is supposed to be the fourth estate, just as you have judiciary, you have executive, you have legislature, and all of them have their own domains of power. One cannot trample the other, and in a democratic society, democratic setup, judiciary is supposed to be the watchdog of executive as well as legislature. In the same way, free media is considered to be the fourth estate. Media is supposed to be the protector of citizens' rights, citizens' life, because they ensure by having free communication with the people and commitment to certain values. The commitment to truth, commitment to justice, commitment to human rights, commitment to the rule of law, commitment to the constitution which is supposed to guide the functioning of the executive, the legislature and the constitution, and that is why media is supposed to be very impartial. But unfortunately, I'm lubricating my mouth so that I'm able to speak. It's very difficult this time. But unfortunately, media has played a very, very negative role so far as Kashmir is concerned. That is why you have not known so far the real ground situation of Kashmir. Whatever versions of reality have been given by the state through the media, through her own agencies, through other channels, even in print media, in spite of the fact that the print media sometimes has carried very, very good articles in the recent years, which have opened some people's eyes, but it's not available to everyone. The print media is not available at the ground level to everyone. It is basically English media, which is not available to everyone in the society. And that is why most of the information that has come to you, that's a colored, biased, in the sense it is trying to uphold whatever the state says. It is never interrogating, it is never questioning the versions of reality that are given by the government. Hello, it's okay now? Hello? Hello? Does it work? Okay, that will make my job easier. So that is why I say why it is important that you should know the reality about Kashmir. Supposing in the last 6 months, from July 8th and up to the ending of November, and actually the movement continues, Kashmir rose as never before. Why did it rise in such a big way that you had 1,200 villages on the roads and streets demanding Azadi? You had all the towns, all the villages and all the cities of the state who came out and braved bullets, braved ballots, offered their chests for these bullets because they are so much fed up with repression. They are so much fed up with the militarized society that you won't believe when Kashmiris rose up to demand their right to self-determination early 90s, not that there hasn't been any movement before. That movement has always been there ever since 47, especially after 1953 when Sheikh Abdullah, the popular chief prime minister at that time, was arrested. So the movements have been there, have been different movements. It's not that one thing which you need to understand very clearly, that it is not for the first time that people have risen against the domination, against a kind of colonial control of the Indian state over Kashmir for the first time. It's not for the first time. That is why you are young people who don't know history. The history is not being told to you. There was a plebiscite movement going on from 1953 up to 75. When Sheikh Abdullah actually, again when he was released from the jail, I will go into the bit of history later, when he was released from the jail, that a plebiscite movement was going on. A plebiscite movement which has been actually, that resolution has been passed by UN General Assembly, UN Security Council, when the matter was taken by Nehru to the UN Security Council. I'll come to that bit of history later. Right now my point is that Kashmiris did not rise all of a sudden in early 90s. The movements have been going on. But instead of listening to what the people are asking for, what the people are demanding, those are legitimate rights in international law. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights actually guarantees to all the peoples the right to self-determination. And in our case, it was not something which was to be now acquired. It had already been recognized by the world body in terms of UN resolutions on Kashmir from 1948 and then 49. So this portion I'm trying to finish this in the sense that don't think that Kashmiris have risen for the first time against the Indian domination of Kashmir, whereby all political, civil rights have been rather snatched. But it was when patients had come full circle in early 90s. When Government of India had closed all channels of communication, that they will not listen to you when you will ask for your rights. Instead, they will only manipulate people through this manipulated elections and other processes and extending laws of Kashmir which should not have been, we couldn't have been, according to 370, it shouldn't be. It is then when people's patience came full circle that the youth of Kashmir even went across and picked up guns. They thought, now we can make the government of India only listen to us through the gun. Immature children, they don't know that, because supposing I am older, I know I am not equal to the task of driving away a force which is huge in numbers. I am not equal to the task of fighting a big state. But when you are children, when you are at a younger age, then you do not realize you are full of passion, then you think you can pick up the gun and solve issues. It is in that sense that the youth picked up the gun. But it does not matter, the rest of the society was very much satisfied with. It doesn't mean that the rest of the society was quite happy and satisfied with the status quo. But what has been the response of the Indian state in 90s, when on the one hand youth actually launched an armed struggle, and any government, any democratic government will listen to people, bring them to the table, because they didn't want to kill anyone. They wanted that the government of India, through this way, will listen to them. But instead of listening to them, there was a huge military crackdown, not only on those militaries but entire society. The government of India sent there were already 150,000 army in Kashmir, but after this they sent 700,000, which means 7 lakh army in Kashmir, and then crushed the entire civilian population in Kashmir. So much so that this crackdown led to almost 95,000 lives so far, which are mostly civilians. And then this army was actually strengthened, given total immunity by AFSA, Armed Forces Special Powers Act. What does it? I mean, ask any Kashmiri or even a person from Manipur, what Armed Forces Special Powers Act? It means that forces have a right to enter any house. Forces have a right to destroy anyone's rights on the mere suspicion that he is the enemy of the state, that he is carrying arms and ammunition. A mere suspicion. And now what has happened? How the army has misused this article? Not that you really see a person with guns, you see someone with ammunition, but on the mere suspicion, they destroyed entire localities. They destroyed entire residential areas, entire shopping complexes, and entire villages and towns. And your Kashmiri students here will tell you these things one by one if you want it, because once I tell them, you can ask them how many towns were burned, whether it is Tar Sharif, whether it is Sopor, whether it is Khandwara, whether it is Kaudara, whether it is Lalchok. All these places have been destroyed under this Armed Forces Special Powers Act. Because they say, we have heard that a militant has passed through this area. Not that you will go and pick up if he is really there, but you destroy the entire area under this Armed Forces Special Powers Act. Not only that, thousands of rapes have been committed under this. And last time when the Burma committee after Nirbhaya case sat and tried to make new laws on sexual violence, I was also one of the depositories, because you have to depose before the commission. They had called some 60 women from all over India, I was also one of them. And when I told them that, how could you justify, because now they had a limited mandate about sexual violence. I said, how do you justify sexual violence which is, outside used to unbridled powers over the citizens and take away their non-derogable rights. And right to life is a non-derogable right. Those who understand law, who understand politics, who understand international law, then there are certain rights which are non-derogable, that cannot be alienated, that cannot be separated from humans. But still, under this law, they have used it and not only killed people directly in fake encounters, but extrajudicial killings, torture killings. Ask those Kashmiri boys who have been tortured and totally being impaired for the whole life, disabled for the whole life. 2.5 lakh people have been totally crippled, disabled in this ongoing violence. But your media has never told you about all these stark realities about Kashmir. You have already been told that militant killed one soldier, which is only a small bit of story. Supposing 2 days back, when this encounter happened with these small boys, first of all, they took one boy inside a house as a human shield. Supposing they said one militant is hiding in a house. And then they don't go themselves, so here's a boy, they pick him up, they say, you go before, and we'll follow you. And therefore, whoever hits, it is this boy who will be hit first. And exactly this thing happened this time also. That boy who was sent before as a human shield, and there are thousands of people who have been used as human shields. And not only they get a bullet from before, but they get a bullet from behind. Because they don't kill the other person, they kill this person to scare the other one. Such thousands, and we don't have statistical data, will not give you an idea what is happening or what has happened so far in these years. Now the question is, once you have militarized the entire space, after people ask for the right to self-determination, all other rights have been kept under suspended animation, which means they have been denied, and these rights are given to people only when they collaborate with the state, who agree with the state, who do not defy the state. Only those people get these rights. You understand? So this is one point, that once people rose up against the repressive state, repressive and colonial tactics and colonial politics of the state, the result has been, the response has been overwhelming military crackdown. So much so that Kashmir has slipped virtually into military rule from which it has not yet emerged. Literally, Kashmir is manned by forces. Not only one force, on the one hand you have army, then you have BSF, you understand BSF? Border Security Force, then you have CRPF, Centrally Reserve Force, and then Kashmir Police, which is as colonial as any other force which comes from outside. They are equally brutal. Kashmir Police itself, therefore all these forces put together have made Kashmir into a towering inferno. It is a nightmare to live in Kashmir today. You can't even imagine how difficult it is. Now you will say, why do you demand this azadi? It is not, and that will take me to the historicity of the issue. Because on the face of it, media is presenting as if it's a law and order problem. वो उठे हैं, कुछ unrest है, हम गोली से उड़ा देंगे, वो खत्म हो जाएगा. It's not that. The question is, Kashmir has a history of its own, and the Kashmir issue rose when India and Pakistan got partition. You know, we were under Britishers, and Kashmir, along with some 3 more states, were princely states at that time. And by princely status, they were directly controlled by the kings or the princes. They were not under the British suzerainty or the British control. But at the time of partition, what happened? Britishers partitioned
India on the basis of religion into India and Pakistan. And so far as the fate of these 4 states is concerned, it was actually the choice was given to the people of those 4 princely states that they can decide their own political future depending on the majority religion in those states. So one was Kashmir, another was Hyderabad where we are sitting, third was Junagadh, fourth was Northwest Frontier Province. Now, Northwest Frontier Province referendum was conducted and the majority vote went to Pakistan in spite of the fact that they had a popular leader at that time. He is called Khan Ghaffar Ali Khan. He was in favor of India, but the people voted against him and therefore it went to Pakistan. There was another state called Junagadh. The referendum took place and they overwhelmingly voted for India. So far as Hyderabad and Kashmir is concerned, Hyderabad had the majority of Hindus, but the king was a Muslim. And Patel said, since the majority of the people are Hindus and therefore we can't give the king a right to decide their fate. And therefore he in a way carried out aggression on Hyderabad and therefore annexed forcibly with India. They say lots of people were killed also in that. But it doesn't find mention in the major narratives of Indian history what has happened in these places. Now we have been most unfortunate because so far as the geographical affinity is concerned, the religious affinity is concerned, Kashmir should have naturally at that time become, I am not saying today, I said at that time naturally become, it should have been allowed to exercise this referendum. So they could have, since there were more than 80% were Muslims, they could have gone to Pakistan. You understand? According to the partition plan which was drawn by Britishers. Now, but India, through machinations, engineered an instrument of accession with the King of Kashmir. King of Kashmir was a Hindu, but the majority of the subjects, citizens, we are still subjects. We are still in feudal law order. You may be citizens, but most of Indians even are not citizens. Even they are subjects only. You know what I mean? There's a subtle difference. Citizens are those who have rights and who can demand rights. Subjects are those who are passively being acted upon. Oh, subjects है, या बादशाह की. जिस monarchical rule में subjects होते हैं. But what has happened? We in Kashmir feel acutely that we are subjects, not citizens. But what we are demanding is the rights of the citizens. Because in a democracy, citizens have rights. All of you have rights you can demand from the state. But even in India, in most parts, people have been reduced to subjects, especially the marginalized classes. Because it is the corporates and the political class who take power, who enjoy power. Once they are chosen, they are totally segregated, distanced from people. They do whatever they like, but then they don't care for what the public says. Because in Indian democracy, you don't have even the right to recall. Right to recall means that if you are not happy with the MLA or the MP, you can call him back that we are not satisfied with your performance. You better come back and sit here. We will choose someone else. That is not given in Indian democracy. That is why the moment they get elected, they get totally distanced from public. And therefore in majority cases in India also, people don't have the sense of the creative participation in the political processes. Whether it is election or whether it is any day-to-day affair. They don't get sense of participation because democracy demands that all the major issues should be referred back to people and they should give views. Things should be put in the public domain and there should be debate and discussion. And whatever majority opinion arises through public discussion and discourse, that has to be accepted by the government. Not that they can dictate today, governments work as dictators, as despotic democratic rulers. These are despotic democratic rulers. Whatever is actually happening in most of the parts of this country. You understand? So what I am trying to say is that this right, which was our right according to partition plan, that was not given to us. Instead, India actually engineered a document of accession with Maharaja, who had already fled Kashmir. Under the popular revolt, because when India got free, there was a Kashmiris also got a lot of energy to fight against this monarchical rule. And he had already got scared of people, he had fled Kashmir. And once he had fled Kashmir, he had already lost the moral authority to take any decision about the political future of the state. But it is during that time he had gone to Bombay and they engineered this accession, instrument of accession. But once this instrument of accession, this document was sent to the Lord Mountbatten, who is the Lord's Viceroy of India, because he had to sign everything, whether it is acceptable or not. He said, I can accept it on this condition, that it has, in case of any dispute, in case people don't agree with it, because it's Maharaja doing it, in case people don't agree, it has to be referred back to people. But it hasn't been a good fortune to have seen that day where it has been referred, because it has been disputed, its legitimacy has been questioned by people, interrogated by people, but so far it hasn't been our good fortune to have seen the day when the right was given to us. So instead, what happened? Again, machinations were used by the establishment of the state to integrate Kashmir within the Indian Union instead of asking people what they want. Now, what happened? These Pathans had also come to the support of Kashmiris against the Maharaja at that time, who was very tyrannical, despotic, who begari lete the. If you understand what is begar, work without wages and forcibly taking you for a work, taking you as labor, but without any wages. So many people have got killed where they were sent from one place to another carrying burdens on their backs, and they have got killed during snow. That was the kind of extreme tyranny to which people were subjected. But today we are no different. Army is doing the same to people there. They are also taking them for begar, and it is even Mehbooba Mufti who said once when she was angry during this uprising, she said, ये वो लोग हैं जिनको मैंने चाकू से बचाया, ये लोग हैं जिनको मैंने आर्मी के बेगार से बचाया. She has accepted it publicly when she was giving a press conference along with Home Minister Rajnath Singh. She said, ये लोग आज मुझे दिखाते हैं, they are just now showing me who you are. I am the person who actually saved them from the throes of death, from forced labor for which they were being taken by the army. You understand? So what happened, I am trying to say that there was extreme repression, and these Pathans from northwest frontier province had also come to Kashmir to actually help them get liberation from this tyrannical king. But on the other hand, India has already engineered this instrument of accession with the king. Now remember this, because this will put your perspective right. But Nehru actually at that time was the first Prime Minister of India. He took the matter to the Security Council as a complaint against Pakistan that we have already had this instrument of accession, and therefore Pakistan has no right to come into the territory of Kashmir, and still these raiders, these tribal raiders, in their discourse they call them tribal raiders, but we call them Pathans who had come to help Kashmiris from the Dogra, who had actually been so tyrannical to them. Actually, but inspired by the freedom movement which has already succeeded in India. Remember that, because these things coincide. Why they came to liberate Kashmiris from the tyrannical rule at that time, it was because they were actually inspired by the freedom movement of India, in which India had already got liberated from the British imperial, colonial rule. You understand? Now once he took it to the Security Council heard both the cases from one side as well as the other, and it passed a series of resolutions. And the first resolution passed in 1948, recognizing Kashmiri's right to self-determination, that it is neither the king Now because they had also got ultimately Sheikh Abdullah's signature on it, but it was again conditional. Sheikh Abdullah had also said it is conditional, it is not a permanent solution, it is for the time being till situation stabilizes in Kashmir, till that time. Because on 27th, Indian army landed in Kashmir. They were actually, on the face of it, called by this king against Pathans. You understand?
So what I am trying to say, on the one hand, Indian army comes on 27th of October, and on the other hand, Pathans come from Uri side into the valley of Kashmir, and the two forces clash. But once Indian army is driving back these Pathans, they stop at Uri. After that, they don't go. What happened? That partitioned Kashmir into two pieces. 1/3 went into the control of Pakistan, and 3/4 remained in the control of India.
The same question was taken by Nehru to the UN Security Council. And the Security Council said it is the people who are the ultimate arbiters of their destiny. It is neither the king nor the popular leader, nor the two countries who can take the ultimate decision about the political future of Kashmiris. It is the people themselves who have to take the final call on what they want their state to be like, whether they want to be part of India or Pakistan or whatever. Independence option is not given to them. I am talking of that time. But so far that has not taken place. Instead, in 1950, when Indian constitution was being made, Sheikh Abdullah was also called to the Constituent Assembly along with 3-4 people, and he was asked, how shall we define our relationship with you? He said, temporarily you can keep the same 3 things, because in accession you had only 3 things, 3 areas. One is defense, foreign affairs and communications. That accession was only on 3 things. That India will share and have control on Kashmir only in 3 areas. That is defense, foreign policy and communications. And at the time when the constitution was being made, what happened? Sheikh Abdullah pleaded only this should be kept as a temporary provision. Where? Temporary provision in the constitution till the issue is resolved. Because UN resolutions had already been passed in 1948 and 49. You understand? Series of resolutions we gave Kashmiris the right to self-determination. And now when the constitution is being made, Nehru was responsible before the world body. You cannot have shoved it aside. And that's why, in spite of Patel's opposition in the Constituent Assembly, he sent Gopala anger. He told them that we have to keep this provision in the Constitution to define the relationship between Kashmir and India. But it was also said, Sheikh Abdullah at the time insisted it has to be temporary because the final settlement is yet to be done. And final settlement, we have to ask people of Kashmir, we have to ask their opinion. And Nehru himself, if you read books, there are lots of books which say Indian commitments of Kashmir, which say that, he says, these are his words, there will be no forced unions, no forced marriages. Kashmiris will be allowed to decide their future. They will be allowed to go their way and we will go ours. Even if that pains us, even if we feel very sad, but we will allow them to go their way. There will be no forced union, no forced marriage. He said it in Parliament, he said it in Kashmir, he said it in those days there was no TV, but he said it on radio. But practically, after having done this, the state government, I mean state means the state, took every step to integrate Kashmir. That was a Solomon pact. In spite of the fact I am telling you that the will of the people is not there, in spite of the fact this document was engineered with the king, in spite of the fact that the popular leader himself has said that it is only conditional, it is not the final settlement of Kashmir, So that is why Kashmiris have been questioning, interrogating this document, this accession on one hand. On the other hand, there are UN resolutions which actually override any accession. They override, because accession was done in 1947, October 26, and UN resolutions were passed in 1948 and 49, and then they kept on passing. Because even when the Constituent Assembly, in 1953, Sheikh Abdullah again had Manpasand Ek Constituent Assembly which was unopposed. He framed it, and he was its head. And he was at the time demanding, since we are a sovereign state, we have only temporary accession to India, we will have a constitution of our own. And then he actually, unopposed, he got members, he got selected members for this Constituent Assembly. And he became himself the chairperson. And he was telling Nehru that we will declare ourselves as sovereign republic because our accession will use temporary. You understand? Because he wanted to keep it, he would like to keep some relation with India, but totally internally sovereign. It was because of that he was arrested on 9th August 1953. And it was one particular constable from the police. The Prime Minister of Kashmir is being arrested on 9th August 1953 for demanding his rights, for wanting to write a constitution of his own. But they did not say, because he had every legitimate right to do that. They didn't say that he has a right to do that. They said he was actually conspiring with America, that he will bring America into Kashmir, something like that. They made a conspiracy case against him. And he was put behind bars for 11 to 13 years, because after 11 years he was released for 1 or 2 months. He was taken again for 2 years, so it was 13 years he was put behind bars for a conspiracy which was never proved, and then the case was taken back. The real thing was that he wanted to assert that internal sovereignty of Kashmir. And once he was arrested, he was put behind bars, he was put in a cell. We accuse Sheikh Abdullah for all this. Because we say, why did he in the first place even sign that conditional accession at that time? Why did he say, okay, it's conditional? Because we say he should have. Why did he side with the king at that time? Because he was fighting the king. He was a popular leader. He was fighting for democratic rights. He was fighting against feudal lord. He was fighting against despotic monarchy. But at the same time, why did he sign that treaty, peace treaty, which actually said, which brought Indian army into Kashmir? You understand? So we are, all the Kashmiris cursing him today for making that big say. It's a historical blunder. He should not have trusted Nehru at that time. Now after him, then they put one stooge after another, and once they put these stooges into, there has never been any assembly election which has been any fair, but it has been a manipulated election. Through manipulated action, you get the desirable mandate, because that mandate is given to people who are ready to act as your collaborators, who act as your stooges, because they can do any dirty thing for being in power. And that is why, after 1956, this Article 370 was eroded gradually. Now, it was written in 370 that this could be changed or, amended. Only if it is actually recommended by Constituent Assembly. And then a presidential ordinance will come on that. Now, the Constituent Assembly doesn't exist anymore, and therefore nobody could change it. Yet they use the state government, the state legislature, that their concurrence is enough. We don't need anything else. It's a theft. It is a terrible deception. Whereas it is clearly written that it could be amended or changed only with the concurrence of the Constituent Assembly. Since the Constituent Assembly was dissolved at that time and therefore it couldn't have been. But they have used at the same time state assembly, state legislature, state government for gaining this concurrence. And once they got concurrence, they have eroded entire Article 370. That out of 297 articles of Indian Constitution, 295 stand extending to the state today. So it is actually today only an empty shell. Article 370 is empty shell. The hermeneutic violence of BJP, RSS, government is that, because then they there is a across the board consensus in repressing Kashmir, telling lies to Kashmiris and deceiving Kashmiris. It's not only one party at that time. But they have a particular agenda. They say since it's temporary, it can be easily taken out of the constitution. Now what I am saying that in spite of the fact that India had not actually implemented UN resolutions, and if they had even abided by their own commitments which were given by through Article 370, things would have been more different. If they had allowed democracy to prosper, if they had allowed free participation of people in the political processes, if they had not disempowered people, if they had not manipulated every process in Kashmir, if they had not denied us fundamental human rights, things would have been different. We have ultimately accepted to be part of India because there would have been a trust, because we have actually abided by that Solomon Pact which you have given to Kashmiris now in the way of Article 370. But what you did, you imprisoned that leader, threw him in the dustbin, and in his absence you brought all these regimes one after the other who actually committed fraud, loot, exploitation, and I call it prostitution of democracy, if that's not too harsh a word. Prostitution of democracy. Because then only you will understand what I mean by what they did with democracy and the democratic institutions. And same thing happened to its economic interests. Do I have more water? Thank you. So practically they took, in spite of the fact that they gave you commitments that will have only control over these three areas, practically after the arrest of Sheikh Abdullah, what did they do? They eroded Article 370 in such a way that nothing has remained there. It is an empty shell. And I call it the hermeneutic violence of those parties who are saying we'll remove Article 370. Why do Kashmiris oppose, in spite of the fact that they know there is nothing in this article now? But today it remains the symbol of Kashmir as a dispute. That is why we say it should not go till Kashmir issue is resolved. It is not temporary in the sense that you can arbitrarily change, lift it from the constitution. Temporary in the sense that the matter was soon to be resolved. It was in the sense of a soon to be dissolved marriage rather than soon to be formalized marriage. The kind of relationship was that it was a kind of divorce between the couple, which is not, it is only verbal, but it has to be written down now. It was to be formalized. The divorce was to be formalized when Kashmiris would have actually decided about their political future. That is why the article was temporary. It was not in the form of an engagement which is to be formalized into marriage. That is, you can understand in a better way. But today these parties say this is temporary, we can easily. There are so many other articles also about other states which stand specially there and nobody is questioning them. But the entire politics of India is placed in the name of Kashmir. Please, please have mercy on Kashmiris. You are the young people, you should rise, mobilize and tell your governments that why have you militarized the entire area, turned it into a concentration camp. The entire Kashmir is turned into a concentration camp, whereby we have no control over our life and death. No control. Anybody could be hit any time. And it is going on today. The army chief has said that any person who comes on the side where we kill these militants, we will consider them also militants and we will finish them off. Because thousands of people are coming for the funeral processions. Because these are young boys. My heart bleeds. I don't want anyone to go into violence. I don't want. Nobody wants. But you are not able to control the young generation. They are so much fed up with repression. They feel it is better to die rather than live this life of humiliation, repression, denial of rights, denial of security, denial of dignity, denial of peace. That is why they are actually going into this. I wish I could persuade them, but nobody is able to persuade them. They leave their parents high and dry. They go into it. And once these army walas go to kill them, they say, now nobody should come even for the funeral, because if you come for the funeral, you are also militants, will kill you also. It is yesterday's statement. Because so many press walas were actually calling me, what is your reaction to that? I said, I don't know what to say. I'm mad. What could you say? Mad heart, be brave. What can you say at this junction? And that means they are going to kill entire population. Because it is not less than 80,000 people who come for funerals. And he said, we are not going to tolerate, we'll kill all of you if you come for funeral procession. Its funeral procession is a religious rite. It has to be performed, whoever dies. Because after all, you have to give a decent burial to the dead body. Even for that, please, I tell you, come in some buses at least from Delhi to Kashmir, we have visited to see what's happening there. They are your brothers and sisters who are being finished like this. They are your brothers and sisters. We are not an alien community who has come from Mars, who has come from Pakistan as dreaded terrorists. We are as normal human beings as you are. But we have been denied all rights. We have been denied every space. You won't believe it's literally a concentration camp, an extended concentration camp. Why do these people come here to study? They feel a freer atmosphere here. But most of the boys who have gone out, whether boys and girls, they have also been hit in different ways. Because media has created such an impression about Kashmiris that every Kashmiri is a potential terrorist. And this is a stereotype which is working in every Indian state. And that's why wherever our boys and girls are going, they are suffering more there. Because they are discriminated, they are viewed as potential terrorists. For God's sake, see, Kashmiris have a 5,000-year civilizational history. They are the most noble people in the whole of South Asia. They are the intelligent people. They are human-loving people, but their rights have been denied to them. And therefore, those people who don't demand their rights, who don't rise against repression, are not humans, then they are animals. You have a mind, you have a soul, you have a conscience, you have a reason which God has given. And if you won't fight for it, what would you do? You won't rise against repression, what would you do? So what I am saying, going back to this bit of history, this right has not been given to us so far, in spite of the fact that there have been movements fought by people from time to time. Kashmiri has never got reconciled in 70 years. If anything, today Kashmir is there is total disconnect. I am not saying with you. You are my brothers and sisters. That's why I have come to talk to you. I want you to help Kashmir. I want you to feel the pain of Kashmir. I want you to empathize with your brothers and sisters there. Because once you come to Kashmir, you see how they will take you in their laps, how much love and affection they have for all those people who come from outside. We always take those people who come from outside Kashmir, we give them place in our bosom. We are not what we are painted by Indian media. We are not what we are painted by Indian politicians. We are the first-rate human beings. but we also are conscious that we are under repression and we need to fight it. And we need your support in that. Now what happened recently? Now all these manipulations went on and on and on ever since 53. First, Prime Minister's word was also taken out of the political dictionary. Then, Sadr Riyasat means we have the name President. Just as in India you have President and Prime Minister, we had the Prime Minister. These nomenclatures were also taken. Now when BJP government came, they said there is no need of Kashmir flag. We don't believe in Kashmir because we had a flag of our own. They have torn this flag also to pieces. Today, Kashmir is more disempowered than any other state in India. You still have your autonomy. Kashmir has none. Kashmir, nothing happens in Kashmir unless the orders come from New Delhi. Nothing happens in Kashmir unless army. Because on the one hand you talk of political structure, on the one hand you talk of democracy, where people are supreme, where the political leaders have to be supreme. But on the other hand, you have made Kashmir the laboratory of giving supremacy to the security structure. In a democracy, army is only as an agency for maintaining security of the state. But today, you have empowered army, all the forces. I'm not talking only of army, I mean all the armed forces plus intelligence agencies. You have empowered them so much in Kashmir that they call the shots. They are the supreme power. And what is happening is the same kind of mentality, the same kind of approach when you adopted for all these years. This is having this repercussion in different parts of India. Wherever this army goes, they behave in the same way in those states also. And I have many friends in different parts of India, and they tell me, we are not scared of our forces, we are scared of our intelligence agencies. They are also after us, they are also profiling us. You must know that every person in Kashmir is being profiled, framed in one way or the other. We are reduced objects. Because the problem with the camp is that ultimately it robs you of all humanity. It denies you political space. When you turn a place into a camp, what you do, you first deny them the political space and then you rob them of their humanity, you made them unfree zone. And it's only those people who live there who have sensitivity who can understand what I'm saying. Most of the people who come from different parts of India, they come to Kashmir, they say, first of all, we see army wala everywhere. What are they doing for? At my doorstep, at someone else's doorstep, at every gully, kocha, mohalla, at every street and road. They say, if they are really fighting the enemy, they should be on the borders. What are they doing here? It is those people who come from India. And once they realize what is wrong with Kashmir. But once we say demilitarized, we cannot. Because we are fighting the enemy. So we are identified with the enemy. On the one hand, they say Kashmir is an integral part of India. On the other hand, we are treated as enemies. We are an extension of Pakistan. Therefore, militarization in Kashmir exemplifies an intersection between army used for external defense and army used for domestic repression. Mostly it is used for domestic repression, which has turned security forces, so-called security forces, into a great illegitimate agent of repression in Kashmir, which has undermined the democratic credentials of the state, which have destroyed the democratic credentials of the state. Because whether it is militarization or whether it is them being strengthened with AFSA, in both ways you are destroying democratic credentials and the rule of law. What does rule of law say? What did? Excuse me, water. Sorry. So what I'm trying to say, I keep it here so that I can This is the most unlikely time when I could speak. That's why I need more water. When channels ask me, I almost shout because I'm so much, tired by this time that I don't want to speak, but I'm compelled sometimes by the channels, but then I keep on shouting because I don't know how else I could energize myself. That's the only way. And they also irritate you so much that you can't but shout at them. Though luckily Arnab is gone. Arnab is the symbol of Indian media. Because what has happened on the one hand, they will never tell you what forces have done in Kashmir. They have never carried a tale that they have actually carried the carnage in Kashmir, that they have had so many extrajudicial killings, that thousands of people have been put under unmasked unnamed graves, mass graves. They have never talked to you about the thousands of rapes. They have never talked to you about what has happened to Kashmir, what the force have done. But they will tell you if one militant has killed someone, that they flash across the entire world. It becomes a global headline. Today, NDTV was calling me that would you come for this debate. I said, what is the debate? Two soldiers have been killed. I said, but 4 civilians have also been killed. You don't talk about that. I said, 30 people have been injured by pellet guns. You don't talk about that. You said 2 soldiers have been killed. Why this selective news? And your channel is the one which is supposed to be better than others, which tries to reach the truth. Why did you tell me first of all 2 soldiers have been killed? Why did you tell me that one person has been used as a human shield? Why did you tell me that 10 people have again lost vision? That doesn't mean because Kashmiris are mosquitoes. Kashmiris could be an expendable material. You can throw them away like anything. Because Indians have never raised a voice in favor of humanity. Indians have never raised a question mark on the workings of government in the state. We are part of you in humanity. We should unite in humanity. You should raise your voice for humanity. We are not people who are a different species. You will find us very, very, I should say not only, there are all weak terms when I say when you really open your heart to us, you will find us. In spite of the fact today, in 2010, when 130 boys had already been killed, 130 boys and girls were killed, then a team of women came from Delhi, lawyers, and then they wanted to write about these violations. And when they went to the houses of those people who had been martyred, who had been brutally killed, and those people actually showed them great hospitality. Not only served them tea, food, everything, then they could please take these dry fruits along with you. These are the almonds, these are the walnuts. And then they kept one packet for each of those ladies. And then they kept weeping. So this is the Kashmir. That in spite that our forces have killed them, and see their humanity. They treated us as guests and they said, please take these as tokens of love from us. That is Kashmir. But you have been painted as a very horrid picture. And the problem is that you are educated people. You don't question the state. The state wants to perpetuate its power. The political parties want to perpetuate their power, and they are doing it on your shoulders. They are making you complicit in their sins. Recently, Yashwant Sinha came to you. I told him, tell me for God's sake, how long are you carrying this load of sins on your shoulders? Doesn't your conscience sometimes strike you? Aren't you human beings, whether you are Hindus or Muslims? Ultimately, no religion teaches you brutality towards other human beings. Ultimately, every religion teaches you love, harmony, friendship with other human beings. These are only different ways of reaching God. These are different denominations, Because the ultimate reality is we all want to approach God. These are only different ways. I told him, he wept. I said, don't you think you will sink under the sins of Kashmiris? Do you see what you have done to the mothers of Kashmir? What you have done to the daughters of Kashmir? What you have done to the sons of Kashmir? Do you know how much you have destroyed the homes of Kashmir? How could you sleep well in the night? Don't you think it will haunt you? Don't you think that you will have nightmares about what you have done to Kashmiris? Just for demanding their rights. And the right which has been universally recognized. The right which your first Prime Minister has promised. Which your first Constituent Assembly has promised. लेकिन ये मैं जिसकी लाठी उसकी बैठ, might is right, मेरे पास ताकत है, I can do anything to you. No, Bharkhatat, who is supposed to be fair-minded compared to many people, when I told her Kashmiris are demanding Azadi, give them Azadi on NDTV. No, Azadi can't be given. Why you have to deny it? On what basis are you saying that you can't deny it? If Indian state is really desirous that we should have some relation with Kashmir, they could come, persuade people and negotiate with them. But to every demand, the response only gun and nothing else. The response is a goli. The response is a pallet. The response is APSA. The response is PSA, Public Safety Act, to throw these mosquitoes in the prison and let them languish there, vegetate there. And there are people who have been in jails because of PSA for 14 years, 18 years, 20 years, because it has become a revolving lawless door. On the one hand, the court cautious the detention order, but once that person is coming from the jail, at the gate of the jail, they are waiting with another order, detention order. We call it, therefore, Amnesty International called it a lawless law. A revolving door, क्योंकि इस door से आता है, इससे वापस जाता है. It is a revolving door. From the prison it comes this way, it goes back in this way. Because here the police wala is waiting with another summon. With another PSA summon. And he comes this way, it goes back. How many families have been destroyed? No one in Kashmir has been unaffected. It has terribly destroyed the social space, the cultural space, the political space, so much so that forces are openly, blatantly now interfering all the civilian institutions, all the civilian administrative acts, जो भी administrative काम होते हैं ना civilian government के, they are doing it themselves. They don't even trust this so-called bloody, manipulated government which has been put there as a facade for military rule. They don't listen to them, they do whatever they have to do. They have taken major civilian administrative functions in their own hands. So I say they are actually under military rule. What has therefore happened? This has been the response. And when we talk about but how they have presented it to you, that is why you have never risen up and made yourself heard. They have mystified the issue to everyone. Now by mystification I mean they have never told you that we have given promise of Kashmiris the right, they are fighting for that. They will always fabricate other narratives to obfuscate the issue, to blur the issue, to never name it by what it is. What is the whatness of this thing? They are denying its ontological status. By that I mean, they never tell you that they are fighting for the right to self-determination. They will say it's a law and order problem. It is some terrorists who have come from across the border and they are fighting for Pakistan, and how could we tolerate them? Because the greatest thing which actually motivates you to then hate Kashmir, then stand by government, is that they say these are all Pakistanis. Today majority of Kashmiris want independence from both India and Pakistan. There was a time when Kashmiris wanted to be whole of the whole Pakistan. But today they don't want. They know now the states are brutal. Whichever state it is, they say we want independence from both. But they have poisoned your minds through media that Kashmiris are an extension of Pakistan. And that is why it is domestic repression. Otherwise, rightly asked by so many journalists who come to Kashmir, agar ye army hai, it is to fight Pakistan, it should be on the borders. Why is it on my doorstep, on your doorstep? Why are they on all the routes, on all the roads? And taking my identity card, they have come from outside Kashmir, taking my identity card whether I am a native of Kashmir or not. An outsider is asking me the greatest insult, which our boys are facing every day. Show me your ID card. A foreigner, an outsider from Kashmir is asking us every day, show us our identity card. This is the greatest humiliation. In your own land, you are taken as strangers. Because your ID card is checked not by your own people, by those who come from outside. This is the greatest travesty of the truth which is happening. Another thing they say, when we talk about the solution, they say, what about Jammu? I call it pluralization of stakeholders. Now there are basically three parties to the dispute: India, Pakistan and Kashmir. I told you whether you like it or not, Pakistan is a party to the dispute. Not only because 1/3 of Kashmir is under Pakistani control, which is part of the princely state of 1947, but because they also have a claim, whether today I agree with that claim or not, but they have to be on board. Because the party. That is why most of the time they say, okay, we'll talk with Pakistan, we don't have to talk with bloody Kashmiris. These are mosquitoes, they have no agency. They have no self-will. We can take their decisions. Forget about them. But when they go to Pakistan, they say anti-terrorism, then we do. And when we look at India, then we say there are 100 terrorisms going on in different parts of India. And nobody talks about them. How many terrorisms are going on? In the name of caste, in the name of creed, in the name of color, in the name of tribe. How many are going? But nobody is talking about that. I am not saying that I support any use of violence, but I said Kashmiris are pushed to the violence. Today I don't want any boy from Kashmir to go into, but Government of India is deliberately facilitating their going into militancy so that they can destroy the entire young generation of Kashmiris. They deliberately do it because they don't resolve this. And therefore what happened recently was nothing if it was not for the resolution of Kashmir. So that's why the demands of Azadi were coming from all over Kashmir. Not only from, but hermeneutic violence, I call it. Violence of interpretation. Part sponsor. Okay, we'll talk about it. What about Jammu? What about Ladakh? What about this? What about that? What about Pandit? What about Sikh? What about Gujar? What about Ladakh? What about this? Now, democratic principle is the inner logic of history. Because all major disputes and issues are solved in the world only through a democratic principle where you count the majority voices. You do not say that each group is an entity unto itself and therefore one vote is equal to 1,000 votes. One vote is equal to lakh votes. No, Ladakhis are only 1 lakh and some thousands in total population. But they are used again as Pandits are 1.5 total population. But they hijack the whole issue that we want to be with India and therefore you can't take a decision. So we have been literally reduced to the minority at one point. The others have taken because they align with the power which has might. And therefore since might is the state, all those smaller groups who say we would like to be part of India, they become powerful. And the majority is thrown into river Jahannam. Any issue in the world, we know whether it's the government, whether it is any major issue where the majority used to be taken, and we do not deny the right of self-determination to anyone else. We say everyone has to exercise the right to self-determination. And we do not ask only for Kashmiris, but for the entire state. You understand? So they said, now recently, for the last many years, they have been saying, army is a stakeholder, bureaucrat is a stakeholder, and any person who has become a researcher, an expert on Kashmir, he is also a stakeholder in Kashmir. And therefore, you have to first set aside. Consensus is an impossible dream in the world. It's impossible you can have consensus on any issue. And if we use the same logic to India, India could be divided into 200 countries. What about this group and what about that group? That all the states who have come together, they will also demand their own homeland. 1.5, they are supporting homeland, demand of 1.5 pandits in the valley. Imagine, this is might is right in nothing. There is no principle which is in operation. All the democratic principles have been thrown to winds. Then they securitize Kashmir. It's a question of security. These are Pakistanis, these are potential threats to Indian security, Indian nation, national integrity. But you people should now decode these words. What do they mean? Do they really mean anything? Because these are fictive terms, fictional illusions which have been created by the state to keep you busy and while they do their work, while they get their power. They take their benefits, but they befool everyone else. Nationally, securitization. They have securitized the entire Kashmir. That Kashmir issue is nothing but a question of national security. And therefore pump in more and more army into it. That is the solution of the issue. And then I have already talked to you about the media, role of media. I told you that they have never really given you, they have only carried misinformation and disinformation campaign. Not only that, whenever anybody achieves something in Kashmir, they use that personal, individual achievement as a surgical strike against insurgency. Take the case of Shah Faisal, who actually stood first in the IS exam, and they took him around the whole India, telling them this is our achievement. उसने जो खुद काम किया, खुद उसने मेहनत की, यहाँ तो हजारों टॉप करते हैं रोज, but nobody asks them. But Shah Faisal was made into an icon and presented as a model of colonial rule of India in Kashmir. That this is how our colonialism is working in Kashmir. We don't want this, but we want that. And we recently, the Zaira Wasim, who had actually acted in a film, Dangal. And trolling is a universal thing today, that so many people troll so many people and nobody really cares about it because it's an individual issue between one people or two people or a groups of people. But some boys had actually trolled this girl, actually asking her why did she meet this state chief minister who has just presided over the death and destruction of Kashmir, who is just now responsible for 96 deaths and 1125 blindings. These blindings were aimed, pallets were aimed. This is the new achievement in horror of the forces, that this time they actually attack the eyes of people with pallets, thereby creating an army of blind men so that they will next time not be able to resist and it will be so easy to rule them. Arbitrarily, without any unbridled pallets were thrown on the eyes of people. And it has also hit so many girls who were sitting in their own kitchens. Their eyes were also attacked, bombarded with these pallets. You have already heard those, some of the stories about those pallet victims. So, next point is therefore the kind of language the state uses. It actually shows her fictional perspective on Kashmir. And by fictional perspective, I mean they know the truth, they know the real, but they have deliberately constructed a fictional perspective which is based on falsehood, which is based on lies, and they are selling that perspective, that narrative to people in the rest of India. You understand? And now what has been the present government doing? They are trying to resolve Kashmir by two things. One, they have seen that in spite of constant battering of people in Kashmir, military force has not been able to subdue. They rise again and again. They rise again and again, and they are actually braving bullets. Because once you overuse fear, people go transcend fear. They go beyond fear. They are not scared of anything. Because you have overused terror. You have overused fear. Now they think militarization has not acted. Now what will act? Two things. Change of demography and constitutional activism. Change of demography because the immediate trigger may have been Burhan, but people were already ready to rise against the colonial politics of this government, which had taken different initiatives of tampering with the demography of the state. Building semi-colonies in Kashmir, giving citizenship rights to those refugees who had been deliberately thrown into Jammu, because you know Kashmir has a state subject law, as Himachal has state subject law, as Assam has state subject law, as Northeast has state subject law, but nobody asks them to change the state subject law. Nobody compels them that we will live in Yoga. But everyone in India is after Kashmir that we have to remove the state subject law and settle like Palestine, like Israelis are doing in Palestine, that we will settle people in Kashmir so that Kashmiris are reduced to minority, that we can easily rule it. There will be no whimper of protest once the numbers are changed. So there are different issues. They have also one plan of building shelters for 5 lakh shelterless people. And who are shelterless in Kashmir? Any person who has the slightest idea what Kashmir is like, not even a beggar is shelterless in Kashmir. And therefore all those homes which will be made for shelterless people will be those who come from outside. And therefore you are trying to change the demography. And then in the name of purpose they will make enclaves within Kashmir territory and settle outside of there so that they change. And then keep the communal cauldron boiling. This is one way. So they said that we don't have to change and we don't have to do anything. Because then we solve the issue. Once you have changed the numbers, you have... Because the ultimate thing in the world, with any nation, it is land. And if land is taken, everything is taken. Then you don't have any identification mark. And this is true particularly of the ethnic groups. And it is not only that the state subject law in some states in Kashmir, which was brought by Maharaj in 1927, but international humanitarian law also protects the ethnic rights of smaller communities in the world, that nobody should actually take their land away from them. They should be allowed to preserve their identity. It is given international law. So what? Another is constitutional activism. They have already, under different names, filed petitions in Supreme Court to take out, to abolish Article 370, and then there is another article which is called Article 35A. Article 35A gives protection to Kashmiris' right to their land exclusively, and the right to jobs exclusively, and the right to scholarships, which was also brought when Sheikh Abdullah told them that we should get further protections for unique identity matters. So they have already under different names. Some is concerned citizen, some is something, but this is actually these right-wing parties who have filed these petitions to the Supreme Court. But let me tell you one thing: if there is a pact between two countries or between two groups, which actually means a solemn pact, which means you have commitments. This cannot be subject to judicial review. Judiciary can actually remove certain things which go against people's progress in one way or the other. Now, if there is an article in Constitution which has been given as a commitment to Kashmir that we will have control over you only these three things and nothing else. So it's a commitment, solemn commitment. Judiciary cannot actually decide on these matters. That is why judiciary so far they understand their role. But if BJP pushes them a little bit, they will finally take a decision. That is why I say that they want to solve this issue through constitutional activism by removing all those mechanisms from the Indian Constitution which give protection to our special position, which isn't in reality there, but I say, we still say it should not be removed till it is resolved, because it is still the symbol of the disputed nature of Kashmir. This is what they are doing. Now, what is the way out? Because if I go on and on, I can go on speaking for patani how many hours, but I see some people going out and people may be already tired. Now, what is the way out? There is no substitute to Indian government to go for meaningful negotiations both with Pakistan and Kashmir. Both have to recognize that we have to restore Kashmir to its original form, that we have to bring Kashmir together in order to restore South Asia to its pristine glory. And it can be done once you accept Kashmiris are the sole arbiters of their destiny. And you have to also remember that once you accept that principle, you will not say that you have to go beyond the constitutional legalese. It has to be within the Indian. Every time they say within the Indian constitution. So within the Indian constitution, you have already destroyed that constitutional position also. What constitution are you talking? Is constitution otherwise being followed here? How many people are denied their rights even today? But then it's constitution. Nothing can help. It's a Bible for us. It's a gospel. We can't do anything about it. Radha Kumar once said, once this constitution was framed, there were so many discussions about each and everything. So she tried to say it's an academic affair. It is not such a thing that it has become a rigid biblical scripture. It is something which can always be changed according to the needs of the times. But that has to be done with mutual consent. And India cannot hold Kashmir hostage that we have to find many Indians who are actually concerned, whose conscience is alive, who have suggested that we have to evolve a framework which goes beyond constitution. A new compact. Because as I was saying a few days back, that ideally Kashmir needs to be free from both the countries. We need our independence. But looking at the geostrategic situation, none of them will allow it to exist on its own. And that is why both India and Pakistan have to come together on the negotiating table and give Kashmiris what is due to them and give guarantees to that status which they will give them together. And then give Kashmiris the right, what relationship they would like to have with both India and Pakistan. And I'm sure Kashmiris will not let you down. They will definitely like to have a relationship with you, but in their own terms, which will guarantee them their dignity, their individuality, and their self. There is stop. Thank you very much for listening. Still have, if you have very pressing questions, very brief,